It's possible in the 2026 NFL draft, we see 1/3 of the first round picks be offensive linemen this year. It is a deep class, it is a need for a ton of football teams, guards, tackles, you name it, guys that can play both. They are available in this class. Today, I'm going to give you guys my rankings of basically the top 9. We're going to go in depth on the top 5, but there will be a tier list at the end, kind of breaking down the way that I view these guys. If you're new to the channel, you love the NFL, hit the sub button, all that jazz. If you're watching an offensive line ranking video, my guess is you're kind of in the weeds in NFL sicko. I will be doing a live reaction stream draft tonight, so if you want to come hang out, be my guest. But let's talk some offensive linemen. My number 1 ranked offensive lineman may come as a surprise, but it's Vega Ioane out of Penn State. The guy's just a really strong guard, 6'4", 320 pounds, 10.5-inch hands. Everything you want at the position is what Vega gives you. And yes, I am sitting here saying that I would take him over Maui Noah, Fano, Freeling, Ian, or whatever tackle you want to talk about. If my offensive line had both a need at guard and tackle, I would be prioritizing Ioane simply because I know he is the can't miss offensive lineman in this draft. Everybody else has some version of a little bit of a question mark to their game, but for me, Ioane just doesn't have that. He is the most surefire guy. I would be utterly shocked if he didn't make multiple Pro Bowls in his NFL career. I think it's very likely that he ends up being an all-pro caliber guard one day, whether it's at left or right guard. He was just really dominant at the collegiate level at Penn State in Big Ten football. The movement speed is there. He is really good in both the run and pass blocking game. Dominant, you could say, in both. Last year, he only allowed 4 pressures in the entire season, didn't give up a single sack, and yes, it is from the guard spot, but still, he wasn't allowing any interior pressure, really just a slim amount, and he only had 1 penalty against him last season. When you look at what Ioane did at Penn State when everything was crumbling, this was the guy who stayed steady. James Franklin getting fired, Drew Aller getting hurt, Singleton and Katron Allen, who's the real running back one there, weapons not living up to potential. They were the number 2 team coming into the season. They were unranked by the end of the year. Everything fell apart at this school except for this guy. This guy was steady as a rock. This guy is the kind of guy that when he comes into your team, he is going to be a multi-contract guard for you and a multi-contract productive guard for you. I think by the end of year 1, maybe even year 2, you already have a Pro Bowl caliber offensive lineman for the rookie price. You go back to a couple years ago, right? The Los Angeles Chargers, they had a draft selection. They had to choose between Malik Nabers and Joe Alt. And walk with me here. I know Alt's a tackle and Ioane's a guard. But what did Jim Harbaugh say? We view offensive line as weapon. They took Alt and they got McConkey later. It worked out. That's the way you should have done it. To me, Ioane, the floor for him is Baltimore at 14. And if the Ravens can get this level guard at 14, they'll run that pick to the podium. But I have to be honest, I'd probably start considering him as early as 3 with Arizona, and I would highly consider him at 4 with Tennessee. Ioane is the most surefire offensive lineman in the draft. A lot of teams need multiple spots on the offensive line. I'd consider him at 4. I'd probably certainly take him at 6 if I was Cleveland. This guy is going to be a highly productive NFL player. At number 2, I have Francis Maui Noah, the tackle out of Miami with his physical profile, 6'6", 329 pounds, 10.5/8-inch hands. The arm length, people are saying it's a problem. I do have some question marks about how big of a deal that'll really be. It could be a problem, don't get me wrong, but is he off my draft board or falling deeply past pick 15 because of it? No, I'm not willing to sell stock on the guy at that level. I do think Ioane is a better prospect, but ultimately Maui Noah will likely solely be a right tackle at the NFL level. I don't think he is the kind of guy that you're going to transition him over to left tackle. I think if you are drafting him, you are drafting him to play right tackle for your football team. You could maybe make an argument of right guard, but again, I think tackles where he's going to go. And when you have him, I think there's a really big strength to his game. I think as a run blocker, he is really, really excellent. Reminds me of Penei Sewell at Miami. The way that he was in the run blocking is Penei Sewell-esque. The movement that he had on the outside, the way he was able to leverage defenders, the way he understood the run scheme behind him, and he was able to create holes to that right side. On stretch-based plays, you always had an opening if you were the running back behind Maui Noa. This is the strength of his game to me. If you want to have a predominantly run-based offense, Maui Noa at your right tackle makes a ton of sense. That's why I think him to Arizona makes a ton of sense. They have Jacoby Brissett, but they have all these running backs that they brought in. They have Algier, they have James Conner, they still have Trey Benson. Like, if they want to be a run-first team, Maui Noa at right tackle makes a ton of sense to me. I do have some pause at the NFL level as a pass blocker against the best rushers in the NFL, just because when I saw him play some stiffer competition, it looked like they were giving him a bit of a hard time. Not every time the defender won, but it wasn't as easy as it felt for him in the run game. And then you start to wonder at the NFL level, is this guy going to be able to hold up against the best of the best? Nobody could hold up against Myles Garrett, but you go down that list. Myles Garrett, Will Anderson Jr., Micah Parsons. Like, there are some really strong pass rushing edges in this league, and I just question a little bit if Maui Noa is going to be able to keep up with them. Last year at Miami, he allowed 2 sacks on the year, 10 pressures, and had 7 penalties. So not quite the numbers that you'd completely want it to be, but again, the prospect that Maui Noa is, everything I've heard about the kid in terms of his story, just a real grinder, good work ethic, gonna be a good locker room guy, has the grit and determination to be better that you want out of a player, and I do believe he can improve, and with his size, I have him graded as the second best offensive lineman in this class. But where for Ioane, I was like, plug him in, everything's going to be fine. There's a little bit of, for Maui Noa, what does the pass protection look like against some of the league's best edge rushers? At number 3, I have Spencer Fano out of Utah. 6'6", 311 pounds, 9-inch hands. This is the kind of guy that's probably going to be able to be moved the most of the top 3 across the offensive line. Could he play right tackle? Yes. Could he play left tackle? Absolutely. I actually think his best position at the NFL level would be better suited at guard. A lot of people said the same thing about Will Campbell, and then he ended up playing tackle for a lot of last year, and you saw against one of the league's better defenses in Seattle in the Super Bowl, he was the main struggle focal point. I think a similar thing could happen to Fano if he was transitioned to left tackle. I've heard a lot about him in the Cleveland Browns and them wanting to play him at left tackle. If I was Cleveland, I would go Ioane guard and then take another tackle at 24 and see how that played out, but I digress. Last year, Fano was really excellent statistically at Utah. Didn't give up a single sack, only allowed 5 pressures. I do prefer him in the passing game to Muaga, but Muaga is just a far better run blocker in my opinion. For Fano, his landing spot's going to depend on your need. If you need left side of the offensive line and Ioane is gone and Muaga and Fano are staring you in the face, I would 100% go with Spencer Fano in that particular spot. But if I had a blank offensive line, I would take Muaga. But this is really like a 2A, 2B for me. Offensive line is one of those spots where it's really tough to do a rankings because so much of it is based on need that I'm kind of just giving you my pure grades on these guys and where I would take them if I had a blank offensive line in the order that I would draft these guys to fill out that offensive line. But Spencer Fano, I do think that the upside is there. Dan Brugler, a guy that I really respect from The Athletic, has Fano ranked as his #1 offensive lineman in the class. He is in that tier 1 group for me, as is the guys above him. But for me, just some slight concerns about, is this guy just almost a little bit too versatile that he's not going to be exceptional at a specific position? It is obviously very valuable to have a guy on the line that you can kind of kick anywhere and fill in any gaps on an injury, and I think that's super useful to a team. But do I think he has the Pro Bowl caliber upside at a single position? I'm just not sold. At my 4th spot, I have Emmanuel Pregnon out of Oregon. I get it, this is probably a little high for some people, but again, I'm just giving pure grades here on what I saw out of these guys. Physical profile, 6'4", 311 pounds, 11-inch pause, man. The guy's got great arm length as well. He is going to be a very, very steady guard for an NFL offense. I've seen him get mocked to the Chargers at 22. I absolutely love that destination. If he's on the board at 23 for my Philadelphia Eagles, I absolutely would not be mad at them taking him. I just think this is a guy that's going to be a really consistent, high quality starter at the NFL level for multiple contracts, his rookie deal and a second deal. And I think when you have somebody in your mind that you view that way in an NFL draft, that's the kind of guy that I'd rather take rather than a project or a guy that I don't know where they fit on the offensive line. Pregnon, I know where he fits. He is a guard, a really quality one. He is steady in both the run and pass game. Last year, he ranked top 12 in both run blocking and pass blocking for guards per PFF. He allowed 0 sacks in 2025. I get it that maybe I'm just higher on the value in offensive guard than tackle to some people, but ultimately, when it comes to building out an offensive line, all 5 pieces have to be steady. And yes, tackle in theory matters more, but now the NFL is so shotgun based and there's a lot of great interior defensive linemen, and you play a Green Bay Packers, and if your guard is weak, they just kick Micah to the inside. Like, you have to be steady everywhere. So to me, it's just about getting the best player available to fill a need. And Pregnon is my 4th best offensive lineman. I get it, he plays guard. I get it. Do I think he's going to be an all-pro one day? I don't think so. I mean, he's got elite size for the position, though. But to me, there's just too many question marks on some of these tackles that I have ranked below Pregnon, where I look at Pregnon and I go, I'm getting a damn good offensive lineman. I'm getting a damn good guard. This guy's probably going to be my starting guard for the next 5 to 8 years. Why would I throw that away just because of some made-up positional value? You guys know that if you've watched these videos, I'm all about just taking who's the best guy. We talk about mock drafts. I'm like, let's get Caleb Downs early. I don't care that he plays safety. Let's get Jeremiah Love early. I don't care that he plays running back. Like, he's just clearly uber talented. That's how I feel about Ioane, why I have him at 1, but also why I have Pregnon at 4. 5, I have Monroe Freeling out of Georgia. The guy's physical profile is just outstanding. 6'7", 315 pounds, 10 3/4 inch hands, excellent arm length. To me, he is a guy that, again, I don't know where he's going to land on an offensive line, but based on his build, I have a much more strong belief and ability that he could become a really strong tackle for my football team. I actually think he has Pro Bowl, All-Pro upside. I don't know if that's my most likely outcome for him, which is why I have him at 5, but out of all the remaining guys, this is just hands down the one that I would take the shot on. Flexibility of play, played at Georgia, SEC football, SEC edges, and he had a ton of success there. He's a really, really good athlete. I think he's really going to be an offensive line piece, weapon, whatever you want to say, that can be utilized in the run game really strongly, but as well in the screen game, getting out there as a blocker because of his athletic ability at his freaky size. I think Monroe Freeling, to a team like Detroit, you can kick him to left tackle, play Penei Sewell at right tackle, and all of a sudden you have this really good, athletic, fast tackle duo in Sewell and Freeling that other opposing edges look at and they're like, getting around these guys is, speed rush wise, is starting to become a nightmare. And for Sewell, I mean, it's impossible to get through him too, but Freeling, that's a different story. But my point being, Monroe Freeling, I think, could be a really strong piece on an offensive line and has the flexibility to play a lot of places, but tackle to me feels like the most likely outcome for Freeling, which we talked about Fano earlier. I said it's kind of most likely guard. Freeling, I think it's most likely tackle. And then we finish off with my tier list. Tier 1, I have Ioane, Muaga, and Fano. Tier 2, I have Pregnon and Freeling, the guys we talked about. And then in Tier 3, this is in order. I have Blake Miller, Max Iannacore, Caleb Lomo, and Caden Proctor. I am pretty low on Proctor. I think he has to be a guard at the NFL level. I think he's just got too slow a foot speed, but, that's kind of my unpopular opinion of the offensive line section. I appreciate everybody who watched this point in the video. Offensive line, one of the tougher positions for me to scout. The guy who is about 180 pounds, never had experience playing offensive line. The tape where you watch it, it's a lot easier to just watch tape on a wide receiver, running back, and know what you're going to get. offensive line's a little trickier. So, you know, if you didn't agree with the rankings, bear with me a little bit. I'm just trying to get each group out there for you guys. That way there is a record of what I said. That way your team takes a guy that I had lower, and in the future you can go, you told me he was going to suck in the draft. You were wrong. Or I can tell you how right I was. Either way, it's just a fun time of year. The NFL draft just a few days away. Again, we'll be live for round 1 of the NFL draft, myself and Javon. So make sure you are tuned in for that. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I'll catch you next time. Peace.